the Good afternoon. I'm here with the wonderful Rosie Russell, who has very kindly offered to be one of my early interviewees so that we can make sure the questions are absolutely spot on for the book that we're writing, Rebel Women. Rosie is an old friend of mine, and I'm really grateful that she's here with us today as a senior woman in health and safety. So, as you know, Rebel Women is a book and a podcast project exploring the careers of women in health and safety, from those just entering the profession through to senior leaders who are shaping its future. And the aim is to capture practical advice, honest reflections, and the lessons that can help the next generation navigate their careers successfully. So, Rosie, today I'd love to talk a little bit about your own journey, what you've learned along the way, the challenges you faced, and the impact you would like to leave on the profession. So, can you first of all tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found your way into health and safety?
I think health and safety found me more than me finding health and safety. Like so many people, for me, this is not what I intended to do. I left university intending to be a chemistry teacher. However, I landed up entering research laboratories, actually as a research chemist, thinking that I would do that for a few years. What I found, however, was that I'm naturally quite organized and actually much better at the organization of a workplace than I've ever was at the chemistry. So I got very quickly sucked into laboratory management, and then with that, health and safety. And then working with a small biotech startup, my boss decided that I was going to be health and safety for them. His logic for this was that I'd already been doing a little bit of it previously, but my wife had done a master's degree in health and safety. So never mind the fact that I worked in chemistry and she worked in civil engineering, clearly that tracked across to myself. But the rest is pretty much history. I had the opportunity to get involved, found I enjoyed it, and then moved from that small biotech startup to a slightly larger biotech company to a government research laboratory, through into charity sector, university sector, and now into pharmaceuticals. And it just seems to have stuck.
What training and education did you do? Because there are so many pathways into the profession, aren't there now?
There certainly are. And initially, I was purely going on the experience that I had had from my chemistry degree, where Heriot-Watt, where I studied chemistry, were actually very hot on drilling health and safety into its students, certainly in the chemistry department. Because as you can imagine, in a chemistry lab, things can go wrong very quickly and very seriously. So even before I had left my undergraduate studies, I would say I was reasonably proficient in risk assessment. So at least initially, I was trading on that knowledge and experience. Once I moved on to working for a slightly larger company, in this case Millipore, they were able to put me through a Nebosh certificate, which is a very traditional entry point in terms of studies. And I think at the time in the early 2000s, might not have felt entirely relevant to someone working in a chemistry lab, but it gave me the good grounding in the principles of management. Additionally, with the nature of what I was doing, I did radiation protection supervisor qualification because we were working with radioactives. And then when I moved on to the Institute for Animal Health, they put me through the Certificate of Professional Development in Radiation Protection, which is the postgraduate certificate level qualification to become a radiation protection advisor, because it was felt that might be a direction I would go in. It ultimately wasn't, but I then also did the master's degree in occupational health and safety management through Brunel University. So that's the route that I took, but it all did start with the Nebosh certificate, which I do remember um, both fondly and with a sense of, did I really put myself through that?
It seems to be a really hard one to get. I've spoken to so many people that have really struggled with it.
And to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily change that. It's there is a discipline involved with doing it, and whether every aspect of it is going to be necessarily relevant to where you'll land up in health and safety, I think gives you a solid grounding and a solid awareness that pretty much I think everybody in the profession needs.
Mm.
Now, I'm not saying other qualifications wouldn't be relevant. Of course they would be, but I think early in your career, having something that requires a bit of effort to do, that covers the basics of really management and accident prevention, because let's face it, that's where it is most focused.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I think that gives you then a solid foundation to build on.
So, looking back over your career, what would you say has surprised you most about working in health and safety?
I think coming from a background of being a physical scientist who um, would have probably been a little bit haughty about the social sciences and such things, as perhaps a 20-something-year-old might be, and full of opinions and they know everything. I think what surprised me the most is actually the most relevant learnings along the way have actually been about people and psychology, and that whilst you have to have the technical understanding of the hazards that you're dealing with to be able to advise on them, if you don't understand people and why they behave the way they do, you will get nowhere. Which actually means that I think that health and safety is as much as anything a subdiscipline of psychology.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we talk about soft skills, and it's not a soft skill at all, is it? It's a fundamental, hard, technical skill as much as anything.
Absolutely, and I'm going to jump right in there and quote one of my good friends who says that soft skills are not soft skills; they are hard leadership skills. Thank you,
Yeah.
Louise.
They are really hard. Yeah.
Absolutely
It's
hard to
much harder than
master,
learning the technical stuff. Yeah.
but actually hard skills, as in core skills.
Oh,
And
core. Yeah, absolutely.
and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think Louise Hoskins, when I first heard her say that, there was something that clicked, um, and that was one of my epiphany moments. I think that
Yeah.
actually this is as much, well, it is a blend of technical knowledge and management and psychological skills.
See, I think the more that I understand health and safety, the more I realise what actually a really highly skilled profession it is, in the sense that you're also influencing people in areas that they actually don't particularly want to know about as well, in the main.
And this is a conversation that I've been having recently on a lot of the discussion panels, on some of the workshops I've been in, is that actually, so influencing people in ways that perhaps they don't want to be influenced. We are facing a plateau in health and safety performance at the moment. We don't seem to be able to get better than where we're at. And through various workshops that I've been involved in and discussion panels, we're rapidly coming to the conclusion that it's these micro injuries, these micro insults to our health that actually we're going to need to focus on if we're going to reduce not just injury rate, but improve the picture around health. The influencing is going to have to be at a level where our ambition changes completely. It should no longer be simply about getting people home safe today, tomorrow, this week, but actually focusing on, are we confident that when people come into the workforce that they're going to be able to retire healthy? And that changes the ambition of our profession fundamentally from today and tomorrow and this week to timelines of decades, and the influencing that we're going to have to be doing around what might seem to be irrelevant behaviors on a day-to-day basis. This is really a challenge for us.
I couldn't agree more, Rosie. It absolutely has to go in that direction, as opposed to the direction it seems to currently be in, which is things like occupational health are completely ignored, or not completely ignored, but they're kind of nowhere near the top of the agenda.
And I have a massive issue around occupational health, certainly in the UK, in that it is attached directly to your job. Okay, it's in the name, occupational. But the problem is that your occupational health record does not track with you from job to job.
No.
So
Oh,
your
okay.
exposures and the things that you've been
Yeah.
involved in, that information gets lost every time you change job. And we're not in a job for
Mm.
life anymore. Most people will have 5, 6, 10 jobs or more, perhaps during their career. And I think there is actually now an argument that, as with your own personal health record that moves as you move between GP, perhaps your occupational health record should do the same. So I'm going to be quite controversial and say I would actually argue for there being a national occupational health service, because that would also unify standards across employers. It would also give access to it for the very small and micro enterprises.
Rosie, there's so much more that I'd love to talk to you about on this subject, and we're kind of moving into something. It's absolutely fascinating, and I definitely want to continue that conversation with you. Um, can we move on to what you think one of the biggest challenges has been in your career, and what's helped you navigate it?
It is it's the transition from technician to strategist.
Aha, yeah, yeah,
Quite simply, we
yeah.
we start out early on being technically very competent around the hazards that we're dealing with individual cases, perhaps investigating accidents, helping with risk assessments, putting procedures in place. And if you're good at that, you then start to move up through management. And it's the same, I think, in every role, in every profession. You get promoted into management because you were technically competent. And then you move into this kind of tactical world where you're now in charge of resources, yet you're still focused on the technical elements. But let's assume for the moment you actually move through that layer reasonably well. You then get thrust into this strategic world of budgets and corporate timelines and projects, and you land up so far from the person who is handling the hazard, who experiences the risk. And you're expected to still have that technical understanding. Meanwhile, the world of work is changing, and be able to speak the language of the board members. And moving from technician to manager to strategist, that doesn't really exist in any of the training that we do. You're just expected to either get it or not.
And it's so different. It's such a different set of skills. And when you've got your value through ticking stuff off, it's really difficult, isn't it, to make that leap?
It also, especially as you move up through those layers, you move very quickly from things being relatively black and white to everything being shades of grey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And given that, I guess, compliance-based professions, of which we are one, do generally attract people who like, I guess, a degree of certainty, it can be remarkably difficult moving up through that.
That was very insightful. What helped you navigate that particular challenge yourself?
I've had a few good bosses who have
Okay.
helped me sit with uncertainty. One in particular where I would say he didn't necessarily manage me as counseled me more than anything. We would quite often just mull over issues, and he'd help me sit with uncertainty. Not necessarily help me resolve that either, but just help me understand that it's actually okay to sit with that uncertainty and that he was aware of it.
Right.
And that you can't go from not compliant to compliant overnight, that is a journey. That the whole continual improvement mindset that we're quite familiar with can also be applied from starting from zero and having to gradually
Yeah.
build yourself up over a number of years to a point where you're actually comfortable with your level of compliance. So, yeah, being able to sit with uncertainty. And I'm not going to say that I've got that nailed down. I do not. It's still very uncomfortable. What I have got nailed is that I acknowledge I have to be able to do it.
So that leads me nicely on to the next question, actually, because clearly you had a very supportive manager at one point. But what else do you think creates the conditions for someone to succeed in health and safety? And supplementary to that, is there anything they can do specifically that you would recommend?
Two things, and it's the advice I give to everyone coming into the profession. The first one is network. You might not necessarily be the most social person. Don't worry, you're in good company. There's an awful lot of health and safety people I know who aren't necessarily the most social people, but we're all technically very knowledgeable, and most of us are very happy to have a one-to-one conversation. So, network. If you're on LinkedIn, reach out to people that you admire. Most of us will respond to you. I'm certainly one of those. I respond to every message I get on LinkedIn. Probably to my own detriment sometimes, but because I do believe in supporting other people. The other one is read. Read voraciously. Take a look at what the key thinkers around our profession have said. The James Reasons, the Sidney Deckers, the Todd Conklins. Even get out of that to people like Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who's much more perhaps philosophy based. So Black Swan, Anti-Fragile, books like that. But read. And more to the point, ask other professionals what they're reading. Because it will give you a knowledge base that will just sit and then just bubble up when you need it.
Yeah. That's lovely advice. Thanks, Rosie. So tell me about a moment, achievement, or a turning point in your career that you're particularly proud of.
I think I'm going to do something quite current, actually. I've been working in my current organization for about 6.5 years. And I've been gradually nurturing the culture. I'm not going to say building the culture because I don't build the culture. The culture sits with the people who work in the organization. They own it, not me. I can help nurture it. But we've gradually come on a journey where health and safety was something you had to do, to being really quite interdependent. So are we at generative level yet? No, of course we're not. It's going to take another few years yet. But I managed to get funding for a group of people to do a Nebosh certificate, which we've already discussed is not a trivial qualification to undertake. So I was able to offer to all of my health and safety representatives on my site EHS councils and the company EHS committee for people to go and do Nebosh certificates, really for me to try and decentralize health and safety a bit more in the organization and get the knowledge where it was needed. I expected I'd get 4 or 5 people. I got 15.
Oh, wow.
I
That says something, doesn't it? That really
three
does. Yeah.
3/4 of my health and safety reps and committee members are now embarked on a Nebosh certificate,
Wow.
which that tells me something about where we are culturally. And I had not expected that. So it was an unexpected validation, I think, of what I've been doing over the last 6.5 years. That people are that engaged in health and safety across the organization.
Mm. That really is something. I can see why you're proud of that.
Well, the thing is, in a year's time, once they're all qualified, because they're all doing it distance learning, bless them, I will have a degree of expertise spread right across the organization that allows then me to evolve the health and safety department up to the next level.
You absolutely will. I mean, so you alluded earlier to the fact that somebody reaches out to you on LinkedIn, you're always happy to help, and I know that you're president of WiRSM. I've seen some of you speak on lots of subjects that are also dear to my heart, and I'm interested in how you might encapsulate what legacy you would like to leave in health and safety, what impact you'd like to have had on the profession.
There's a few different things there. I've been part of authoring British Standard 30480, which is suicide in the workplace. And I think through my own lived experience and what I've been able to contribute to that, we've been able to shift the needle a little bit on discussions of that. 20 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about mental health in the workplace unless we were forced to. That's now much more normalized. Although the statistics there still aren't great. I think it's only 1 in 4 people would actually be willing to discuss their mental health with their line manager. So we're still a long way from having that one sorted, but we are normalizing it. But we are now on the way to normalizing the discussion of suicide and the impact that can have on organizations. I think if I left one thing behind, that would be enough for me.
Yeah.
But I've been very fortunate along the way to start the careers of 4 or 5 other professionals, all of whom are now starting to blossom. And that to me is absolutely gold, because they will be practicing health and safety a long time after I retire.
Yeah.
But through WiRSM, I've been able to support quite a few people on through their journey towards fellowship as well, and help a number of people who perhaps didn't have the same view of themselves that others did, and help elevate them on towards getting their fellowship through WiRSM. And those person by person efforts for me are they're what I'm about, and being able to lift other people in their careers. I think if a few people remember me for having done that, then I'll have more than I deserve.
I certainly will. You've always been there on the end of the phone for me, Rosie. I really appreciate it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
Absolutely. Um,
Yeah.
there is nothing stopping us, given that we now understand that health and safety is much more about people
Yeah.
ultimately, and that is, albeit stereotypically, an area where women tend to be better. I think that we should be taking this industry by storm. Um, two of the very best people that I've ever worked with were women who gave me my start early on, and I will be forever thankful to them. But my advice is go for it. This is a career that is rewarding like no other. It's frustrating, it's annoying at times, but wow, can you have an impact?